Good morning, Hare Krishna. Let's invoke auspiciousness. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam namaskritya narachaiva narottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. And today we are reading from the third canto, entitled The Status Quo. We are reading from chapter 6, Creation of the Universal Form, and we are on text 18. Word for word Sanskrit. Tvacham
Vacham
Asya
Asya
Vinirbinam
Vinirbinam
Vivishu
Vivishu
Disnyam
Disnyam
Oshadi
Oshadi
Amsena
Amshena
Omabi
Romabi
Kandum
Dum
Ya
Yai
Asau
Aso
Pratipadyate
Pajite
Tvachamasya Vinirbinam
Chamasya Vinirbinam
Vivishu Disnyam Oshadihi
Vidishur Dishnam Oshadi
Amsena Romabi Kandum
Shena Romabi Kandum
Yerasau Pratipadyate
Yerasel Pratipadyate
Tvachamasya Vinirbinam
Chamasya Vinirbinam
Vivishu Disnyam Oshadi
Vidishur Dishnam Oshadi
Amshena Romabi Kandum
Shena Romabi Kandum
Yerasau Pratipadyate
Yerasel Pratipadyate
Tvachamasya Vinirbinam
Chamasya Vinirbinam
Vivishu Disnyam Oshadihi
Vidishur Dishnam Oshadi
Amshena Romabi Kandum
Amshena Romabi Kandum
Yerasau Pratipadyate
Yerasel Pratipadyate Chamasya Vinirbinam
Tvachamasya Vinirbinam
Vidishur Dishnam Oshadi
Vivishnu Disnyam Oshadi
Amshena Romabi Kandum
Amshena Romabi Kandum
Yerasel Pratipadyate
Yerasau Pratipadyate. Someone else online would like to read the verse, recite the Sanskrit? Okay, so we can go to the word for word Sanskrit translation. Tvacham,
Vacham
skin.
Skin
Asya,
Asya
of the gigantic form.
of the gigantic form
Vinirbinam,
Nirbinam
being separately manifested.
being separately manifested
Vivishu,
Vivishu
entered.
entered
Tishnyam,
Dishnam
the controlling deity.
controlling deity
Oshadi,
Oshadi
sensation.
sensation
Amshena,
Amshena
with parts.
with parts
Womabi,
Romabi
to the hairs of the on the body.
to to the hairs on the body,
Kandum,
kandum,
itching,
itching,
yea,
yea,
by which,
by which
asao,
also
the living entity,
the living entity,
pratipadyate,
patipadite,
experiences.
experiences.
Translation. When there was a separate manifestation of skin, the controlling deity of sensation, and their different parts entered into it. And thus the living entities feel itching and happiness due to touch. Purport by Stephen Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. For sense perception, there are two principal items, touch and itching, and both of them are controlled by the skin and hair on the body. According to Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti, the controlling deity of touch is the hair passing through the body, and the controlling deity of the hair on the body is Oshadya. For the skin, the object of perception is touch. For the hairs on the body, the object of perception is itching. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnana Jala Shalakaya Chakshun Militant Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Upakadamayam Dadati Swapadam Tikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vidam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschachate Shatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadigora Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yatrita Kripat Tamaham Bande Shiguru Dejatarinam. This verse is going to be very, very helpful today. This verse says that by the mercy of the spiritual master, a dumb person can speak eloquently, and someone with lame can cross over mountains. So we need it today. So I'm going to read the verse again. When there was a separate manifestation of skin, the controlling deities of sensation and their different parts enter into it. And thus the living entity feel itching and happiness due to touch. So the other day I gave class, and the first verse I read connect with that too. He said, or verse 16 say, when there was a manifestation of skin separated from the gigantic form, Anila, the deity directing the wind, enter with partial touch, and thus the living entity can realize tactic knowledge. So a few things came to me. First, the different Sanskrit words. Nirbinani is also in our verse today. Vinirbinam. That's an interesting, how the Sanskrit works. So being separated, and Vinirbinam, being separately manifested. And then the word Asya is also both there and the gigantic form. So we are creating more and more a vision in our mind if we want to. And then Pratipadyate, and Pratipadyate is both also in the verse. Experience, and it means experience, can experience, and then in verse 17 is Prapadyate, is experienced. So though verse 17, 16 and 17 and 18, they all use Prapadyate in 17, which is experience, and then 16 and 18 are Pratipadyate. So we can see that there is a repetition here, and that part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Sukadeva Goswami speaking to Maharaj Parikshit directly. We heard first the demigods, they made some prayers to Vishnu, and for Vishnu to manifest his universal form, because they were like little helpless, feeling we don't know how to do our job, and they have a job, and we now Sukadeva Goswami is unfolding how their job is manifesting from the universal form. So how does that relate to us? So first, the words that jump at me is separated somehow. So in verse 16, when there was a manifestation of skin separated from the gigantic form. So in the Bhagavad Gita, it said the Lord have his ears everywhere, and his eyes everywhere, and his nose everywhere, and his mouth everywhere. So we can imagine like that big form with many, many millions of ears, million on all nose. Or we can also go to like, oh, I see. Like here, there is 4 human beings. Of course, we don't know how many germs there is, or roaches, or ants, or whatever. But we have 4 human beings here. And so each human being have 2 sets of ears, that's 8. And they all are part of that Virat Rupa. So we can also see it like that. We can see the Virat Rupa with all those eyes and all those nose. And we are Mama Vanso Jiva Loka Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. Mama Sat Nana Sasta Nindriyani Indriya. Prakristani Karshati. So Krishna said, the living entities, and this conditioned state, we are conditioned world, in a conditioned world, are internal fragmental parts due to conditioned life. They are struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind. Okay, so the living entities, they are free. By definition, a living entity is free. A living entity is free from miseries. A living entity is happy, full of bliss. A living entity is full of knowledge. A living entity is eternal. In the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, there is so much about the living entity. It cannot be cut, it cannot be burned, it cannot be cannot be wet, it cannot be any, even like sometimes we think of like the worst weapon. The worst weapon is atomic weapon, like nuclear bomb. And the nuclear bomb cannot destroy us. Even the nuclear bomb cannot destroy us. Nothing can destroy the eternal soul. So that eternal soul is part and parcel of Krishna. So on the spiritual level, as part and parcel of Krishna, we have the same qualities than Krishna. We are, and we are separated part. Vibinansa. Vibinansa, it's like we can see Vibir is separated. Vibinansa is like the same root. We can see how Sanskrit, like it's I learned German, and I think it's helpful in my Sanskrit approach because I learned German, and in German there is a lot of grammar and a lot of rules, and then according to where the word is put, according if it's past, future, or present, according if it's a nominative or gerundish or different aspect, then the word change. But the core of the word is the same. So Vibhinansa is a separate part and parcel of Krishna. And it's an atomic part, meaning that atomic part is not all powerful. Like you have a Swamsa, which are Vishnu Tattva. They have all power. They have all power. They don't need protection from anyone. But the separated part and parcel of Krishna, they need protection. They need complete protection from the Lord, in fact, to be able to do anything, complete maintenance from the Lord. We are 100% dependent on the Lord. So I was meditating on those, the skin manifestation of skin separating the gigantic form, and then in 16 say, where there was a separated manifestation of skin. So in a 16, we understand that skin separate. So the Virat Rupa is the only material form Krishna has. Krishna usually manifests himself, expand himself as Vishnu Tattva. When he comes on earth, he comes as his original form, and Krishna can change his shape and form, and he's always Krishna. And all the limbs of Krishna are separately can take any function of other limbs. Krishna can eat with his eyes or with his ears. He's not limited by his mouth like we are. And then, so we never think of Krishna having a body. We think Krishna doesn't have a soul, Krishna doesn't have a body. Krishna's soul and body is one. However, when it comes to the Virat Rupa, that's the only form that Krishna inter. He inter as a Kshirodakasha Vishnu, which is a super soul of that body, which is a soul of that body, of that gigantic form. And that gigantic form, in the same way that on a spiritual level, we are part and parcel of Krishna. On a material level, we are also separated part. Like the part of our body are separated part of the gigantic form. And thus, the gigantic form manifests all those eyes, all the ears, all the senses, all the minds, and etc. And here we hear about the skin. So when the skin separates, it's separating all the living entities, not simply the skin of human being. We are a little self-centered human being. We always think of us. And also it's separating in the skin of a crocodile or the skin of elephant or a mouse or all the skin. And when that happens, and the living entity in a conditioned world, like the fragmented parts due to conditioned life, Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita, we are fragmented part due to conditioned life. And in that conditioned state, through our desire, we attract those separated parts from the Virat Rupa through our desire and our deserve. So in Florida, there are some bugs that are so nasty. I don't know the name of those bugs. They are larvae, and then they move through things, and they accumulate.
Maggots?
I don't know, they have little larvae, but they accumulate a lot, like a big thing. Like every time they touch something, they become like big. And in fact, when I see them, they always look like a ball of dirt or a ball of dust or something. But then they bite. Their bite is really painful. You have never experienced that? I never experienced that anywhere but in Florida. But then I look at them and I look on the internet, those bugs, they attract, they're like magnet, not magnet. They're like magnet. And as they move through life, they attract a body. And their bodies like become round and full of stuff. So similarly, the spirit soul with become a magnet. And the attractive potency of that magnet is a desire to enjoy separated from Krishna, and the deserve according to past activity. And that magnet attracts a different set of eyes, different set of ears. Like if I have the magnet of desire to have ears that can see behind me, let's say, like that. So I will attract probably the body of an owl. Owl can do that. They can turn their neck like 180 degrees. They can look behind themselves. And we cannot do that. So, and I'm going to attract a certain set of ears, and I'm going to attract a certain skin, And the skin, separated from the gigantic bodies that we receive, is one of the 5 knowledge acquiring senses. We have 5 knowledge acquiring senses. The Lord give us that. It's kind of mixed blessing, all those things, to tell you. Like, they are mainly the cause of a lot of pain. And they are the purpose of all those senses, acquiring knowledge senses, ultimate purpose is to go back to Godhead. And if we are not using them for that purpose, then they are just creating a lot of suffering for us. So we are speaking about the senses of the skin, touch. So through touch, we can acquire knowledge. I can acquire knowledge if that's a little warm and that's soft. Or I can acquire knowledge. Some people, they don't have eyes and they use their tactile sense to acquire knowledge. So that's one aspect of the skin. And the second aspect of the skin is called itching. And it's interesting. Prabhupada used that word quite a lot. Itching. So we could acquire knowledge. For example, I'm touching this computer, it's warm. Yeah. So that's acquiring knowledge. But let's say that it was very warm, it was hot. Then there is acquire knowledge, but there is also a very strong sensation and experience. I'm experiencing burning my skin. I'm experiencing hot and cold in a way of the dual experience. So it's a separated aspect, and there is 2 different controlling deities. The controlling deities of the tactile sense is the air, Anila, which is a deity directing the wind. So sometimes we have Vayu, but Vayu is a wind god, but like there is different degrees of demigods. They have like head of department demigods, and then there is subhead department demigods and sub head department demigod. So Anila is specifically directing the wind. So it's not the original of wind, it just directs the wind. And to the direct, and inside the body we have 9 winds. We have 9 winds inside the body, and that's quite amazing. I was speaking the other day after class. I was speaking about pneumatic. Like when we go to the bank, we put our thing, like on the drive-through. It goes. So that's a pneumatic system. And there is, at a certain time, I think in the 80s or 90s, they were doing a lot of robotic work. And even now, I'm practically sure a lot of, for example, factories that create cars or things, they're probably based on that system of pneumatic system where it's pressure of air that directs, like that directs the machine through air. We can see that in cars too. It's a pneumatic system that create like that we are not, constantly shaken in a car. There's pneumatic system, yeah. So that's our system works. That's quite amazing. Our eyelids open and close, or our tactile sense is through hairs in the body. Is that sophisticated? We should be completely fascinated by all the information we receive in Sankhya philosophy. Fascinated and also kind of stepping out of our box to like really look at things from a completely different way. And then there is, his name is, Oshadya. And that's interesting because in a Sanskrit word for word, there is Oshadi. Oshadi is a sensation, and then the name of the controlling deity is Oshadya. So I'm noticing that. So sensation, so physical sensation means there is not, acquiring knowledge is kind of neutral. It's like a neutral, I'm acquiring knowledge. That there is a neutral aspect to it. However, Oshadya and sensation, it's what is directed by our sense of identification with duality, good and bad. So like maybe for some people, cold is something we are going to experience to the tactile sense, but also to Oshadya, we'll have a sensation like, I don't like cold, and cold is bad, and hot is good, or vice versa, like that. So Oshadya is like the part of the connection with the senses that is bring happiness or distress, basically. Matra sparsas tu konteya, sitos nad tukadukada, agama paino nityam, das titikshava swaparata. Titikshava means tolerance. Titikshava kaunika. Titikshava is kaunika. So it's like tolerance. So Krishna, he says, the appearance of happiness and distress are like the appearance of winter and summer season. They arrive from sense perception. And that sense perception is Oshadya. And one should learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. And that itching sensation is at the core of sex impulse. That's how important it is in a sense, because it says that the highest, satisfaction, the highest pleasure in a material world is sex. Sex is the highest. It's also the source of the most pain and exploitation and so much connected with it. However, Prabhupada called it the itching sensation because it's Oshadya. And so in a sense, and does the living entity feel itching happiness and happiness due to touch? So, so then we can go further. Often I share like, okay, let's see how much happiness is there. Okay, let's see how much happiness is really there. So let's take any square millimeter of our body. Okay, let's take any square. It can be the genitals you like to. You can be any square millimeter. Just let's take a square millimeter in our body, and then look how much pleasure can be derived from that square millimeter. Like just, even if it's genital, let's see. Even if there is like a moment of satisfaction, oh, feels so good. A moment of satisfaction, maybe 5 minutes, like 10 minutes. Yeah. But let's say we take a hammer and then we how it's called? we pound the hammer with a hammer on that. Remember, you choose whatever you decide. You take responsibilities there. So you take a hammer and you pound that square millimeter with the hammer. How much suffering will be there? How much suffering is going to be there in comparison to the pleasure of that square millimeter on the skin? So we are built like that. We are built that everything, as long as we are identified with the body, as long as we identified with the five senses or the five working senses or the mind, that Brahma Buddha, no, Brahma, Bhuvana Loka, Puna Avartino Juna, Mamu Petiate Container, Puna Janma Navidyate. It's like from the highest planetary system down to the lower, it says that it's all a place of miseries. So it's not very optimistic. The Bhagavad Gita is done to not be that optimistic. It's like it's all a place of misery. But we can see that. We can see, like, it could be that if I pound the square millimeter with a hammer, I will not feel anything. But that's not the system Krishna created. He created a system where that's not what it is. Like the other day, I was speaking about the 4 regulatory principles to someone, and they were kind of, doubting or arguing. I said, well, it's very simple to understand. For every action, there is a reaction. There's nothing free here. It could be that, for example, I love pakoras. Like let's say I eat a pound of pakoras at midnight, Well, the next day my liver is not going to work very well. Because of my liver, my brain is going to be really like, kind of mushy. And then I'm going to have a terrible day the next day. So we take it for granted that, that's the way it is. But we can also step out of that and say, it is that way, that's true, and it has been created that way for a reason. It could be, we could imagine a world where there's no reaction to anything. And in fact, if someone is on a transcendental platform, that person will step out of duality. That duality won't exist anymore. There is I'm not going to read the Sanskrit, but verse 57 of chapter 2 is in the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it, is fairly fixed in perfect knowledge. So to be able to see everything that tenu kompam sushukshamanu. Anyway, I'm not going to say the whole verse, but that verse says that in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's Lord Brahma praying to little Krishna after he understood that he made a mistake here by trying to use his mystic power against the master of mystic. And so he prays, and he said, like, yes, if someone is capable to receive his karma, receive the hammer, whatever, or receive the nice touch, whatever it is, and if someone is capable, a titikshava, like to tolerate that, thinking that in fact I deserve so much more. That the Lord is so kind and the Lord is so merciful to me, then for that person, liberation is already achieved. So what leads us to liberation is not to escape this material world, is to look at it as perfect and complete. And I'm reading a disturbing book in the evening right now. It's called Salted Bread. Have you read that book?
Yeah.
Oh God, it's so intense. I'm going to stop reading it at night because it's not, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. And it's a nightmare of the story of the Armenian devotees, the first Armenian devotees, when Armenia was under USSR, KGB. And Gorbachev was the president, and he made a decree. He made a decree that all Hare Krishna devotees should be arrested. Very simple. He made a decree, like and so that started abuse, a lot of abuse from the KGB. And then every time they will see a devotee, they will take it to prison and beat him, and then release them, and then follow them. And then I'm just at the beginning of the book, and the person who read the book, the person whose story it is, that book is, he lives in this community. I'm going to try to figure out who he is, but anyhow. But when the devotee heard that, and most of them, they already went to the police a few times, and they were beaten a few times, or beaten in the street, like left dead, that people were thinking they were dead, like really violently beaten. When they heard that, the devotee, it didn't change anything. It didn't change any of their activities. It didn't change any of their plan for preaching, producing book. The books were like forbidden. And in Armenia, somehow it's a place where they were producing the books, and they were, like distributing them in Russia. They didn't stop. They didn't change their plan. And because they were above, because they knew. We are in the universe, and the universe is a universal form made of all those eyes and ears and skin and mind and false ego and intelligence, and our body is made of that stuff, and no part of our body belongs to us. It's all belong to Krishna. It's Krishna's. We are Krishna's. Even our mind. Often I try to pray to Krishna. Krishna, my mind is you. Can you please bring it back to you? Because I don't like where my mind goes. And because our whole being. And if we understand that, then we can become instrument and fully trusting in the protection of the Lord. And I know later on in that book, the devotee who wrote that, whose story it is, his son wrote the book, but it's a story of a devotee from Armenia, and that he spent 2 years in jail, being tortured. Their jail were jail, but a lot of them, of Gorbachev, was psychiatric hospital. And they were like putting like drugs in their brain. And they were doing all kind of horrible, torturing them. And the devotees, they continued to preach. They continued to distribute books. They continued to do their best they could do in whatever situation they were. Once there was a Janmashtami, and then the devotee in charge, he organized a Janmashtami outside of the city. There was a boy and his mother, and they were devotees. And so they invited them, and it was away from everything. And so all the devotees, for the first time, they felt free to have kirtan. They were two together. And then at one point, they heard some Matajis outside. They were arguing with some people. And they were arguing with the police at the door. And they kept them out like for half hours, and Mataji screaming at them like, you have no right, show your paper, show. And still, of course, the police came and they took all of them to prison. And when they arrived in prison, each of them were beaten by the prison. And then they were thrown in the cell. And when they were in the different cells, they started kirtan. And even so, the prison guard, they were saying, stop your kirtan, and kicking them and all that, they continued kirtan. So this is a way we can understand Sankhya philosophy, not that we need to go through that. And at the same time, when I'm reading those, stories, I understand why the booming of the Russian bloc, of so many devotees there, because those devotees, they did service that were way far beyond even what the Western, like in a Western world did. the Western devotee did a lot of austerity. You know, they lived simply. They were in the cold, and they had like natural austerity. But on the Eastern Bloc, they were beaten, tortured, and they kept going with Srila Prabhupada's mission, with no deviation, And that's quite amazing, because even, you know, we have the Bible, and the Bible is the story of the apostles. So everybody's like worshiping, you know, Peter or John or Matthew, like they are very special. But in fact, when Christ was crucified, they denied him. They ran away. So they were so scared anything will happen to them. And so we can see those devotees, followers of Srila Prabhupada, they had more courage and more conviction and more depth to their faith than the apostle. And they were, you know, like young, in their, you know, 20s, like maybe early 30s. That's who they were. Quite amazing. So how to use, you know, like how to use our senses, Yukta Vairagya is the core of our philosophy. Srila Prabhupada Goswami explained. So it's called devoteling, and there is a story of Ambarish Maharaj. And Ambarish Maharaj, he was using all his senses in the service of the Lord. He will use his leg to go to the temple. He will use his eyes to look at the deities. He will use his nose to smell the fragrance of the deities. And then it said he would use his body, sense of touch, to embrace the devotee, like to touch the devotees. So it's I can see in that book, there is so much love between the devotee, because they are in such a dire situation. They have no conflict between devotees. They have no bickering. They have no envy. They are just so supportive of each other. Every time a devotee comes back from Sankirtan, oh, we are so happy to see you, because every day some devotee didn't come back. Every day some devotees were arrested, tortured, and sometimes released and followed, and sometimes never released. Like his best friend from childhood of that person, his name was Sachi Sutta, and it was very, very pure. From the beginning, very, very pure. From childhood, really, he was looking for God. And Sachi Sutta died in prison. He died like very atrociously tortured, and he never let go of Krishna. So those devotees, yeah, when they will see each other, they will embrace each other. And they had so much affection. And we can see that in the pastime of Lord Chaitanya too. The devotees are so affectionate to each other. Lord Chaitanya embraces them, they embrace each other. And there is so much affection. And there is a way to use our tactile, our senses and of course, there is so many other. Yesterday, we had a nice conversation. We were speaking about these verses with Dear Govinda and I. We went to Orlando to visit a place Nitya Gopal wanted to show us. Nitya Gopal Prabhu is here today and tomorrow. And so we went there to visit those facilities. And on the way back, on the way there, now we discussed those verses, and I was sharing with Dear Govinda, like I have a little brass Prabhupada deity, and that's really my favorite deity. And so when I bathe Srila Prabhupada, I massage Srila Prabhupada with oil, with mustard oil, because that's what he was receiving, mustard oil every day. And that's a way to use, our tactile, like to really derive pleasure from our hands. A few days ago, I was making puris, and I was kneading the dough. And I felt like I allow myself to be an instrument of Krishna, to just knead the dough. And I was kneading the dough and eating the dough, and it's another way to use our tactile, our sense of, and there is a lot of pleasure in kneading the dough. It's like a sadhana. It's like a meditation. And in many cultures, it's like women spend a lot of time knitting doughs. It's just the way it is. in India, every woman makes chapatis or puris or paratha, and there is a kneading of the dough. I have a book it's called, I don't remember, but it shows sadhana, and step out of sadhana meanings chanting my rounds or sadhana, like getting up in the morning. And it comes to a place of looking at sadhana as every activities of the day. And she make a lot of emphasis on kneading the dough. Like it is a sadhana. And if we want it, we can completely become an instrument of Krishna. Because this body and this mind and this existence in this life, we can say it's mine, it belongs to me, I need to be comfortable, I need to be happy, and then take responsibility for it in a sense, even so we cannot, it's just the illusion of control. Or we can decide it's not mine, none of that is mine, and I'm going to give it back, or I'm going to accept that it's not mine. It's not even give it to Krishna because it's already Krishna's and it's going to be always Krishna's. It's more like accepting it is Krishna's. I am Krishna's. And I am Krishna's on a spiritual level. I'm a spirit soul having a human experience. I'm eternally Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema. Eternally love of Krishna is established in my heart. And and my form is to be a service to Krishna, and we need to remember that. And then, so as I'm a part and parcel of Krishna, separated part and parcel of Krishna, and my body is a separated part of Krishna too. And my subtle body, not simply the gross body, but the subtle body also. So we need to trust Krishna, that Krishna is going to use us. The moment we surrender our mind, body, intelligence, false ego, knowing surrender means kind of accepting that I am Krishna's. That's surrenders. I am Krishna's. And all part of me is Krishna's. Then trusting that Krishna is going to do what he's supposed to do with us, like Arjuna. Arjuna was fighting the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and he became so powerful, invincible on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, so amazingly invincible on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, just by the power invested to him by Shri Krishna. Okay, so we started with separation, and then like seeing those senses, they are part and parcel of the skin. The skin is separated skin from the universal form, like everything else. And then as long as we identified in a conditioned life, we stay in duality, happiness and distress, and mainly distress. We can see the potential for distress is way higher than the potential for happiness in a conditioned state. And then how to dovetail, how to use that body, how to really endeavor to use all our senses in the service of the master of the senses, Rishikesha, Rishikena, Sevana, Bhakti, Uchyate, Rishikesha, like the master of the senses, to use our senses in the service of the master of the senses, Bhakti, Uchyate. Okay, so I'm going to read the verse again. When there was a separate manifestation of skin, the controlling deities of sensation and their different parts enter into it, and thus the living entity feel itching and happiness due to touch. Hare Krishna. Any comment, question, challenges?
As you were mentioning about that, hammering that body part, that part of us which is giving us the most pleasure. I was thinking on one more exercise we can do.
Awesome. What more? What?
You were thinking about, as you were mentioning about handling that body part which was giving us pleasure, visualize which part of us giving us pleasure and hammer the same body part. I was just thinking one more exercise what we can do is we can peel out the 1 millimeter skin from that body part and see what's inside.
Yeah, we can hammer, we can cut, we can do so many things.
We can just see
how much pain it gives. Yeah. Yeah, so many things we can do to the skin, and I prefer to not speak about it too much. Yeah, yeah, those devotees, that's what they went through. They went through so much torture of those sensations, and they were so fixed on devotional service to Krishna. Not that they didn't feel the pain, but like they just got up and continue, got up, continue, got up, continue, got up, continue, with Ekehako Nandana, like a very fixed mind that no, even Gorbachev, you just want to completely finish with us. We are going to continue. And then they spread, on the underground of Krishna consciousness in Russia was an amazing movement, Yeah. Anything else?
I was just remembering one more verse from Bhagavad Gita, the way he was mentioning about it. Yehi samsparsha bhoga dukha.
Yes, please.
Yehi samsparsha, that sparsha, that touch of happiness, it is a dukkha yona. Is a entering to the ocean of misery. Like a yoni means it is a gate toward that. That
And
happiness
sparsha is sensation.
is yehi samsparsha, that sparsha of happiness, dukkha yona, you're gonna enter into the ocean of misery.
Wow.
So when you are experiencing that happiness, pain is awaiting us.
Yeah. The sparsha, the sensation of happiness. Yeah, for every moment of happiness, there is hours of distress. Anything else?
I was noticing, I mean, you mentioned that those verses, Prapajate, Pratipajate,
Mhm.
and then also in previous verses too, it's like text 12 to 26, really just some form in each verse.
Asyan, Pratipadyate, Prapadantie, yeah.
Yeah, like
Experience.
or express or
Mhm.
so yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah. Nyobinam and Prapadyate and Asya are in those series of verses, and because
Pratipatir, which
the same Pratipadya, understand, yeah, experience. Yeah. You have more you want to say? Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out, because that's something I wanted to share, is that it's experience. And then in a sense, our vehicle to go back to Godhead is this body and this mind and false ego and intelligence. And what is this vehicle made of? Experience. And I was speaking with a young woman recently. Her husband is kind of really attached to Buddhism, Taoism. So every Monday nights they go to what she called a very boring lecture. That's very dry. It's very technical and dry. And at the same time, that's what they are looking at, the Buddhists, very much in that lineage. They are looking at experiencing our experience in equanimity, in sameness. And there is many verses in the Bhagavad Gita that also go there, like one who is not disturbed by heat and cold, or honor and dishonor. So there is many verses in the Bhagavad Gita that goes to like coming to a place that experience are just that, and to not attach any dual judgment on them. And the dual judgment is what creates our miseries, not the experience themselves. There is a book I read when I was a teenager. It's called Narcissus and Gold Moon. It's Hermann Hesse. Yeah, I love that book. I fell so much in love with that book. And it's a story of a monk in a monastery, a Christian monk. in a monastery. And it's kind of parallel to Siddhartha in some ways. And so he left the monastery and he went in the world. And then he saw a man and a woman, enjoying. And he saw the expression of the woman face. And then later on in his journey, he saw a woman giving birth. And he saw the expression on the woman's face. And from his point of view, just neutral experiencing, it was the same. It was the same. It was the same expression, meaning like what made it like a painful experience or enjoyable experience wasn't the experience itself, but the judgment that the mind or the body is laying over them. And so in Buddhism, they really insist on that sameness, equanimity, neutrality, to come to a place of neutrality that heat and cold and honor and dishonor and are all the same. And that leads to experiencing our experience. And when we experience our experience, then we become the experiencer. And we are no longer identifying with the experience. And when we no longer identified with the experience, we step out of duality, which Buddhism leads to that, to stepping out of duality. Thank you. I wanted to make that point, so give me an opportunity to make it.
Also, let's see, in the verse, Sri Prabhupada's purport, saying that the controlling deity of touch is the air passing within the body. And so I was also imagining that and thinking of your example you give of the millimeter of skin, wherever it is on the body. and it's really not, it's not like there's localized pain or pleasure. There's maybe a fraction, but really it's sort of like it's kind of similar to like air passing through the body. It's like movement, energy through the body that gives either the pain or the pleasure.
Yeah.
It's not just like a localized thing. So I was just
Yeah.
trying to understand that more of like the air passing through the body and how that's related to touch. Because sometimes it does, maybe we understand it today as like electric, snaps,
Yeah.
electricity coming through or whatever, chemicals.
So many
So
explanations.
many explanations, but also air passing through the body, that fits my experience.
Subtle air.
Subtle air.
Yeah. That fits your experience also.
Right.
That there is like, and also the pulsing sometimes, when we bounce something, there is a pulsing and it seems like hair, contracting, expanding, contracting, expanding. Yeah.
Ayurvedically, it explains that it is because of Vata nature, because of that Vayu, any movement happens because of Vayu. So they have segregation of Kapha, Pitta, Vayu person. Vayu person is very sensitive to touch. Kapha person is least sensitive. So in Kapha person, the air is less prominent, sensitivity is very less. Vata person is highly sensitive because that Vata, that movement, the subtle nature of air comes into the play. And that compares to the Mercurian in us inside the body, which rules nervous system inside us. So that movement, any kind of movement happens is because of air.
Yeah.
The experience is moving is because of air. So if there is no movement, we get stuck. That's why we.
Yeah, movement is air. Yeah.
Even subtle and gross.
Subtle and gross. Wow.
The
Thank
movement,
you.
even if you are a Vata person, the movement of thought is very fast in your mind.
Yeah.
You will think very fast.
I know that.
So
100% Vata.
So any kind of movement
Quick, fast. Yeah. Gross and it's due to air.
It comes
And then
fast because
for people who have a predominant value air constitution, then things move fast. The brain moves fast, the thought moves fast, pain moves fast, pain is more intense. Yeah. and then like the more dance and
Emotions
you know, like
fast.
emotion go fast, and then the dancer, the slower things happen, the more dance, and then the dancer, the fire is still light, but then if you have the water, like kafar is water, then it's more dense.
That's why if you are in the air, it excites your body more.
Yeah. Yeah.
More windy, more airy, we expose our body, it excites us more because of that air
Mm-hmm.
control.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That makes a lot of sense. Make a lot of sense. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what we are dealing, and we all have received different type of skin and different kind of sensitivity according to our desire and deserve. And some of us, we have air that's move faster, and some of us, we have air that moves slower, but the controlling deity is the same. Yes. Yes, very fascinating. So fascinating. I wanted to share a verse just to complete, since we have time. It's a verse from the 11th canto. I don't know why that's going to continue to. I just wrote it down because I think it's relevant to some extent. It says, although the duality of the material world does not ultimately exist, the conditioned soul experiences it as real under the influence of his own conditioned intelligence. So, although the duality of the material world does not ultimately exist, so that duality doesn't exist. It's just our own judgment. It's because we create the duality. This is good, this is bad. This is auspicious, inauspicious. You know, like Lord Chaitanya said, auspicious and auspicious. It's all the same. You know, hot and cold is all the same. Honor, dishonor is all the same. You know, good experience, bad experience, all the same. So that duality doesn't, in itself, in a material world, the conditioned experience, it is, you know, it's under his own conditioned intelligence. This imaginary experience of a world separate from Krishna can be compared to the act of dreaming and desiring. When the conditioned soul dreams at night of something desirable or horrible, or when he daydreams of what he would like to have or avoid, he creates a reality that had no existence beyond his own imagination. That's quite far out. Like there is no difference between night dreaming and daydreaming in a sense. It's just imagination. The tendency of the mind is to accept and reject various activities based on sense gratification. Therefore, an intelligent person should control the mind, restricting it from the illusion of seeing things separate from Krishna. And when the mind is thus controlled, he will experience actual fearlessness. Hare Krishna.
Right.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Krantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanande, Yai Yai Bol.